I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo. This is Joe DeMar, and for the next hour, I will be your host here on For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a program where we talk about environmental and ecological issues and how they affect you and your family and your pocketbook and your lungs and your heart and your health. And it was very interesting driving in this morning. I looked out, I have to cross the bridge over there in Maumee, and saw the river, the Maumee River. That is about the highest I remember seeing the Maumee. I haven't lived here all my life, like some of you, but the park is flooded. The parking lots to the side cut are flooded. That ice jam really has caused a lot of backing up, a lot of water. Is this the highest you've ever seen it? Is this the worst you've seen the Maumee River? Give us a call at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. If you've got a story about the Maumee River, maybe when you were a kid you saw it even higher. This is one of the things, if you're an environmentalist, as you're driving down the road, you're looking out the windows. You're constantly looking at the nature, at what kind of trees are growing, how the plants are doing, what kind of birds you might see. Because we care about the environment. The environment is what surrounds us and what supports us. And the more you see like a healthy environment, the more you are going to, the happier you'll be. So when we drive down the road, my kids always wanted to keep their heads just buried in whatever gadget they've got there. I used to force them to look out the window. I used to say, take a look out there. There's things out there more interesting than those little pixels that are dancing around on that screen in front of you. They were always very irritated with me when I did it, but now that they're grown up, they're happy with it. They're saying, Dad, thanks for making us look around and see the world around us. Because the world around you, the real world, actually turns out to be much more interesting than that pixelated imaginary world that so many of us get stuck in. So what happened? What are your stories about the Maumee River? Are you somebody who goes out and does the walleye run? What was your best walleye run? Why do you do the walleye run? Do you like just catching the fish, or do you like being out there having an excuse to get out in the water? We'll be opening the phone lines up at 8:15. So at that time, you can give us a call at 866-240-1065. So looking forward to hearing people's stories about the Maumee River, the wonderful Maumee River, or as I call it, the mighty Maumee. And I really kind of depending on your calls today because we had a guest lined up, Marky Miller. She was actually with us on our very first episode back in the first week of January. And she's one of the people that helped put the Lake Erie Bill of Rights onto the ballot. And it's a good time to talk about this because the voting on that issue has already started. You can go and early vote right now at the Board of Elections. But the actual election date is coming up in February 26th. And so this is a question you as a citizen are being asked about. Do you support a Lake Erie Bill of Rights? That is a bill that gives the Lake Erie itself some legal rights, some legal standing. Is that idea acceptable to you? Because you're being asked to vote on it right now. So we had Marky Miller lined up. Unfortunately, she sent me a text at 3:15 this morning. She's feeling ill. She's not well, so she won't be coming in today. So please, let's send best wishes to Marky. Hope she gets better soon, and hopefully we'll be able to have her on next week because we have one more show before the actual election date. So we will, though, however, be talking a bit more about the Lake Erie Bill of Rights coming up. We're also going to be talking about this Green New Deal. This Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has published a Green New Deal along with Senator Markey, but there's huge questions about it. People are wondering, what exactly is it? What does it mean? We're going to talk a little bit more about that and try to cut through some of that disinformation. We also have our wonderful sponsors. We're going to be telling you about some of the things you want to get your calendar ready, because at the bottom of the hour, we'll be talking about some of the things that are coming up for the Wood County Park District. They're one of our sponsors, one of our favorite sponsors. So, and they're having a lot of fun events coming up, a lot of things you're going to want to get ready to go to. So get your calendars ready and get ready to listen. And the commercial that that gets played, one of the commercials for my show that gets played here on 106.5 ESPN, The Ticket, is mentions disinformation. And I have to tell you, there is a ton of disinformation going around about this Green New Deal that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as people call her, I'll just call her Alexandria, has put forth to the Congress along with Senator Markey. And the controversy is swirling around not so much the Green New Deal legislation itself, but it's surrounding this supporting documentation, which she either did or didn't publish on her website, and then either did or didn't immediately take down. It's very confusing because the actual language of the Green New Deal on the legislation itself that they're trying to pass is pretty vague on some issues. It says things like, we're going to move to clean energy. Now, in law, definition is everything. That's why they have, law books, they have entire shelves of books filled with just definitions of words, the legal definition. And so the definition of the word clean, if you say clean energy, that can be twisted to mean a lot of different things. And one of the things, clean energy opens the door for things like nuclear power, because the people who promote nuclear power say that, oh, we're clean energy. We don't put any carbon in the air, which isn't actually true. They do put carbon in the air, not directly, but indirectly, they actually cause quite a bit of carbon pollution. And then there's people who even propose that there's such a thing as clean coal. They say, oh yeah, we've got clean coal. So just saying we're going to switch over to clean energy doesn't really mean much. But supposedly her campaign listed it was an overview with FAQs, frequently asked questions about her legislation. And this overview is great. I'm going to read little bits of it. One part is, they mentioned the fact that the IPCC report, that's the International Planet on Climate Change, said global emissions must be cut by 40 to 60% by 2030. And the U.S., our country, with our 300 million people out of 7 billion people, we put out 20% of all the carbon emissions on the planet. And so this supporting documentation says we must get to zero by 2030 and lead the world in a global Green New Deal. And that sounds wonderful. And another thing that sounds wonderful is, that points out in this document that 92% of Democrats and 64% of Republicans support a Green New Deal. And that it's really true that more than 70% of everybody realizes global warming is a problem, wants to do something about it, wants to protect the future for our children and our children's children. But there's that tiny core that says, that doesn't want us to do that doesn't want us to change course, that wants us to keep putting more carbon into the air and making the problem worse and basically wrecking the future for our future generations. And that minority is they've turned to a tried and true tactic in politics. They are pumping out tons of disinformation. And one of the things that they're doing is calling into question whether or not this document that I got this off the internet, and it was supposedly part of the press release that launched the Green New Deal. And I actually got this, believe it or not, from a link that was provided by Popular Mechanics magazine. And so, it looks legitimate, but there's a question about whether or not this actually was released by the AOC campaign on her website. And there are stories that are circulating this weekend that say she actually did put this up, but then immediately took it down. And so the question is getting pulled away from, should we stop putting carbon in the air? Because everyone agrees on the answer to that, or nearly everyone. The answer to that is yes, we should stop putting carbon in the air. The question's being turned by politicians into, did she or did she not put this supporting documentation? And I'm very impatient for Monday because I'm going to call her office. One of the great things about having a radio program is you can say, hey, I'm with the press, and, I have a program in Toledo, and we need to know, I need to be able to tell my listeners, did you or did you not post this supporting documentation? I haven't been able to find this document or any reference to it on her website. So right now, we have to take all this wonderful stuff with a grain of salt. And unfortunately, Democrats have a history of doing this, promising the right thing, promising the thing that we actually need, and then actually delivering something that's kind of different. For me personally, the best example of this is Obamacare. I am a Green, and I've been a Green most of my life, but I have to admit I had a disastrous affair with Barack Obama in 2008. I really worked my heart out for that guy. I was living in Maumee at the time, and I knocked on almost every door in Maumee. I put hundreds of my own dollars into the campaign. I put thousands of my own hours into it because I started working for him way back in the primaries that he actually lost in Ohio. But I really worked my heart out for that man. And I was at his inauguration. And I have to tell you, that experience, 2 million people on the mall supporting the inauguration of the first black president in the United States, that still is one of the highlights of my life. That was an incredibly moving experience. 2 million people, and we actually ended up going through all these privations because it got bitterly cold, and there was confusion because after the inauguration, they closed half the gates out of the mall, and so 2 million people tried to get off the mall and couldn't, and then had to I'll never forget standing on the hill of the Washington Monument and watching 2 million people surge over to the left, run into these closed barriers, and then they all surged back over to the right, where there were supposed to be buses that were going to take people away, but 2 million people, you can't have that many buses. That's too many buses. So, but in that whole time, not a cross word. We were doing things like climbing over construction sites to get off the mall, and everybody just helped everybody climb over. Here, I'll help you get over that bulldozer. And it was just a beautiful experience. The love on the mall there. I do not regret helping Barack Obama get elected. I think that was a wonderful, beautiful thing America did. But when it came time to policy, after the election, for a while I was still working with the Democrats, and they were going, oh, we're going to do healthcare reform. And I was out gathering petition signatures for healthcare reform, and these petition signatures said, we want to revise the healthcare system, and we want to put in a new system that is universal, affordable, and comprehensive. In other words, it'll cover everybody. We can all afford it, and it'll cover all our healthcare needs. Well, what we ended up with, what Obamacare turned out to be, is none of those things. It's not affordable. My premiums quadrupled, or they were going to quadruple this year from last year, because there's no limit on premiums. And so what I ended up doing was going on the marketplace. I bought a cheaper plan that doesn't have as many benefits, has much higher deductibles. So now my premium only doubled instead of quadrupled, but I'm paying more for less health care. And this is kind of typical of how Democrats approach these big problems, is they promise the right thing. They promise what we need, and then they end up delivering something much less than that. And the Republicans, don't get me started on the Republicans, because they're just trying to screw us over at every opportunity. This is why I'm agreeing. I'm not satisfied with what the Democrats offer, but I definitely have to oppose what the Republicans are trying to do to us, especially on environmental issues. But what this document that I've got from the internet, which may or may not be what AOC promised or is actually trying to deliver, this sounds great. One question on here is nuclear part of this? And this document says we're not going to build any more nuclear power plants, and we're going to try to decommission the ones we've got as soon as we can, and hopefully within 10 years. And that's, if you're someone like me who's been fighting nuclear power for almost my entire life, this sounds, I want to just, jump up and down and say, hooray, finally someone understands this and is trying to put it into public policy. But once again, I could not find any official links to this document on her page. According to some news reports, she had this up, but then she took it down. And so the question is, what exactly do they mean by clean power? And so throwing all these questions, tossing out all these stories, and it's clear that some of these stories are false, because now I've seen at least 3 different supporting documents for the Green New Deal, and they can't all be what AOC and what Senator Markey actually did. So one of these are correct. Maybe none of these are correct. Maybe they didn't put any supporting documents out. I'm not going to be able to find out till Monday, but it's very clear that disinformation is being used to hurt the environment, because some people make a lot of money hurting the environment. And I actually had a personal experience with some of this disinformation coming up. I'll tell you that story right now. But first, I want to remind you, we have reached 8:20, which means that we have now opened the phone lines. So please call in at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. We are looking for stories, your stories of the Maumee River. What have you seen or done with the river? Do you fish? What's the biggest fish you've ever caught on the Maumee River? Have you seen this flooding? Do you have like a personal story of this flooding? Is your swimming pool full of river water right now? Give us a call at 866-240-1065. So, another little example of disinformation that I ran into. Might not surprise you to learn that I am on a Facebook group called Shut Down Davis-Besse. And I'd invite you to join it too if you're on Facebook. And it's about 600 people strong, and we basically are trying to figure out how to shut Davis-Besse down. So I put a post on there about the AstroTurf organization that I described last week that was created by First Energy that is trying to lobby our senators, our Ohio state government right now, trying to get them to give First Energy unlimited rate increases so that they can keep Davis-Besse open. It needs billions and billions of dollars of repair. So I put a post on there, And lo and behold, some guy posts on there, oh, well, nuclear power is actually the least fatal power. There was a study from the World Health Organization that said in terms of deaths, nuclear power has the lowest death rate per kilowatt hour of any other form of energy. Well, for one thing, really, you don't go on a web page which is called Shut Down Davis-Besse and start posting arguments in favor of keeping Davis-Besse open. I mean, that's just trolling from this get-go. But this study that he posted, I looked at it, and it's ridiculous. It says that wind turbines are one of the most dangerous forms of power there is. And they said that's because people fall off wind turbines while they're being constructed. And so it has this huge deaths per kilowatt hour number. It puts it right up in the middle. And you know, I'm sorry, it is a tragedy when a worker falls off a wind turbine tower, but that does not happen that often. It's pretty rare. Wind turbines do not scoop people up off the ground and toss them. They just don't work that way. So right away, the math is suspect. And then for nuclear power deaths, what they did was they took estimates of radioactivity released in accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima, and then they said, oh, well, so if they release this much power, this much radiation, then they've killed so many people with cancers and so forth. The problem is that the official estimates for the power, for the amount of radiation released by these accidents is orders of magnitude too low. That's the first problem. In fact, the Japanese government just came out again. It said, oh, yes, well, we were several orders of magnitude too low on what was released in Fukushima. But they've been doing that periodically right along. They keep bumping it up 2 times, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times what the original estimates were. So first of all, the numbers that they're using to estimate deaths and cancer deaths are imaginary. They just plucked them out of the air, and they're wrong. They're much too low. And second, there have been several studies done by the Europeans where they, instead of estimating the amount of radiation released, what they did was they took the maps of the fallout from Chernobyl, because those were mapped very carefully, very closely, so they know where this radiation fell right after the accident. Then they matched those maps to cancer death rates. And that procedure shows, this study was done 10 years ago. That procedure showed that 1 million people had already died prematurely from the radiation released by Chernobyl. And so if you have honest assessments, nuclear power turns out to be one of the deadliest forms of energy per kilowatt hour. Wind turbines have not, 1 million people have not fallen off any wind turbines. I'm sorry, we would have to be having people going up in those wind turbines 24/7 and jumping off in order to get that many people died. So nuclear power is deadly, and the people who promote nuclear power always make the argument, oh, you can't say that this cancer was caused by the radiation from our plant, even when it's clear that cancer deaths increase double pretty much around a few miles away from a nuclear plant. You can't say any particular cancer is caused by us. So they use that argument to sort of suggest that plants aren't actually causing any cancers. Well, you can't have it both ways. So if you put radiation into the environment and there are more deaths, yes, you can't say any particular death was caused by the radiation, but you can say with mathematical certainty that some of those deaths were caused by the radiation. You increase the radiation, the number of deaths increases. Some of those deaths were caused by the radiation, even if you can't say specifically which ones were and which ones weren't. So anyway, as I was saying, I had a post on there. This guy comes on and starts making arguments for nuclear power on our anti-nuclear power page. And it turns out, go look at his profile. He's an employee of First Energy. So he's a paid troll. I mean, it's gotten to the point where they don't even bother to have anonymous trolls anymore, people that are pretending just to be citizens. This guy actually is an employee of First Energy, and it's his job to get on websites like ours and Facebook pages like ours and try to give us disinformation and make us go away, basically. So that's the new face of politics in America today, disinformation. The problem is that we need to know the truth. We need to have the truth in order to make the right decisions on a whole host of issues. And so that's one of the reasons I created this program, is to be able to give you guys the truth. And so I think now would be a good time to transition over into talking about the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, because once again, there's a lot of disinformation about this. I'm seeing people, I was looking at some of the things that the Farm Bureau is saying specifically, and they're saying things like, well, if you spill some motor oil in your driveway, they're going to come get you. Well, no, that's not true. That's a lie. And although you should not be spilling motor oil in your driveway, I'm not suggesting, you do that, but they're not going to come get you because of this Lake Erie Bill of Rights. What the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, I can't read the whole thing. It's much too long. And I wish Marky Miller was well enough that she was in here today, because, I'm not one of the people that put this on the ballot, but the people who did do this did amazingly intensive petition gathering. They put their hearts and soul into this for about 2 years. And then the state of Ohio and the Board of Elections of Lucas County jerked them around with court cases. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court. It got tossed out. Then it got tossed back in again. Then it got tossed out again. Now it's back in. And so it's actually finally going to be voted on. And so here is the heart of the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. It says, "We, the people of the city of Toledo, declare that Lake Erie and the Lake Erie watershed comprise an ecosystem upon which millions of people and countless species depend for health, drinking water, and survival. We further declare that this ecosystem, which has suffered for more than a century under continuous assault and ruin due to industrialization, is in imminent danger of irreversible devastation due to continued abuse by people and corporations, enabled by reckless government policies, permitting and licensing of activities that unremittingly create cumulative harm, and lack of protective intervention. Continued abuse consisting of direct dumping of industrial wastes, runoff of noxious substances from large-scale agriculture practices, including factory, hog, and chicken farms, combined with the effects of global climate change, constitute an immediate emergency. And we, the people of the city of Ohio, find that this emergency requires shifting public governance from policies that urge voluntary action or that merely regulate the amount of harm allowed by law over a given time, to adopting laws which prohibit activities that violate fundamental rights, which to date have gone unprotected by government and suffered the indifference of state-chartered for-profit corporations." And then it goes on to talk more about how the current laws and the current regulatory environment does not actually protect the lake. And then it says some stuff about supporting the state constitution. And so then it goes to the heart of it, the state statement of law, the Community Bill of Rights. This is Section 1, subsection A, Rights of Lake Erie Ecosystem. Lake Erie and the Lake Erie watershed possess the right to exist, flourish, and naturally evolve. The Lake Erie ecosystem shall include all natural water features, communities of organisms, soil, as well as terrestrial and aquatic sub-ecosystems that are part of Lake Erie and its watershed. And the people of the city of Toledo possess the right to a clean and healthy environment, which shall include the right to clean and healthy Lake Erie and Lake Erie ecosystems. And so now it's saying that the lake has the right to exist and to flourish and to be healthy and to naturally evolve. So that is the heart of the Lake Erie Bill of Rights right there. And then under enforcement, it says The City of Toledo or any resident of the city may enforce the rights and prohibitions of this law through an action brought in the Lucas County Court of Common Pleas, General Division. In such an action, the City of Toledo or the resident shall be entitled to recover all costs of litigation, including, without limitation, witness and attorney fees. And governments or corporations engaged in activities that violate the Lake Erie Bill of Rights in or from any jurisdiction shall be strictly liable for all harms and rights and violations resulting from those activities. So what that means is that if a company or a person is violating the rights of Lake Erie, that is causing pollution that hurts it, then anybody can bring a suit on behalf of Lake Erie. And then if they find there's damages to Lake Erie, the person who, or the City of Toledo or whoever brings the suit, can actually collect damages and make it cost and put a cost on damaging the lake. And this is what has the Farm Bureau up in arms, because let's face it, folks, their farms are hurting Lake Erie. It's the runoff from factory farms and from the farms down in Wood County that are putting the nutrients into the lake that are causing the blue-green algae blooms. And so they are costing all of us money. They're costing us money in terms of increased treatment for our water systems and loss of revenue for things like boating and fishing. They're costing everybody money, and they don't want to be held liable for it. So they're looking at legal ways they could fight this. They're looking at things that they can do, and they're really sounding the alarm here about this Lake Erie Bill of Rights and trying to tell everyone to vote against it. The thing is that what they should be doing is saying, let's stop polluting the lake. They should be saying, how can we stop causing this terrible problem for the rest of society? Not saying, how do I get out of paying for these problems that I'm causing the rest of society? How do I shirk my responsibility for damaging Lake Erie? That's not how they should be approaching this. They're farmers. They're close to the land. They know about keeping the land healthy and able to support life. The same thing is true of Lake Erie. Lake Erie has to be kept healthy and able to support life. Now, one part of this document says that current laws are not at all protecting the lake, that the lake is dying. And the thing is that this was written, I don't know if some of you are still around that remember how Lake Erie used to be back in the 70s and the 60s, specifically in the 60s. That was when the Cuyahoga River caught fire several times, and you had the scene where fire trucks were rushing down to the river to spray water on the river to try to put it out because it was burning. There's no question that our regulatory system has improved the lake. It was biologically dead. It has come back because of strong environmental regulations. So environmental regulations themselves do work, but there's an inevitable pressure from organizations and farms and politically powerful groups to keep continuously weaken these regulations, because that leads to more short-term profits. It leads to less long-term profits because a cleaner lake gives everybody more abundance and more riches over time. But it does lead to greater short-term profits if every time you get to repeal one of these regulations. And so what they're saying with this Lake Erie Bill of Rights is that the regulatory model doesn't work, and we have to go straight to a litigation model where rights are enforced by taking people to court. Do you agree with that? Do you think you're going to vote for this? Do you think you're not going to vote for this? Give us a call at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. And I believe we have a caller on the line. Yes. Craig, go ahead.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Thanks for putting on the show. I know you like it. You like to talk about positive, optimistic, forward-looking things that people can do, and so I thought I'd call and talk about insulation, if you don't mind.
Insulation. Yeah, no, I don't mind. Yeah, this seems like a good day to talk about insulation when it's so cold outside. Yeah, go.
I'm thinking it's cold outside, but if it's cold in your house, you want to do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when I think about things you can do to help, save money and reduce your carbon footprint, insulation is actually at the top of my list because it's the sort of thing you do once, and then it keeps your house warmer for years, and it saves you money every single year. The insulation I've done in my house paid for itself after 5 or 6 years, and I did that 20 years ago. And so ever since then, my electric bills have been, my natural gas bills have been lower, and my house has been more comfortable. So I think for a lot of people, the motivation to put some better insulation in your house is going to be more comfortable, going to be less drafty, the heat's going to be more even. And I think everybody can agree that would be a nice thing to have.
So you actually did the math. You got insulated, and then you watched your bills, and it only took 5 years for the payoff?
Yeah, that's hard to tell because some winters are warmer and some winters are colder, and natural gas prices go up and they go down. So it's difficult to really point back carefully, but you can do the math a little bit differently, where you look at how good the insulation is all through your house, and you look at how much less heat is being lost and how much heat you put into your house when you heat over a season, like adding up all the gas used on your bill. And that's a way of getting at figuring out how much less heat you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, yeah, go ahead.
Well, and one of the good things about insulation is that not only does it keep your house warmer in this cold weather, it also keeps your house cooler in the hot weather. Yeah.
That's right. And so it cuts down on your air conditioning bills, and it's all good. I just looked online, and one of the things, the first thing I would recommend, if you heat your house with natural gas and you're a Columbia Gas customer, they have a really excellent program to do home energy audits for a really reduced price. So you can call Columbia Gas. Now, they'll actually give you the number in a minute, so if anybody wants to write it down. So for $50, they will come and do a home energy audit, which is like a $300 or $500 value. So they really are working to help people do this. What they'll do is they'll come and check your house for the amount of insulation in your attic. They have ways of checking the amount of insulation in your walls, which I'll tell you about. And one of the most fun things they do is they put a big electric fan in your front door and blow air out of the house and suck cold air into the house. Now, it's not going to make your house cold all day long or anything. But by doing that, they can see exactly where cold air gets in. And the other thing is just by calibrating the fan, they can tell how big all the air gaps are all around your house. And then they know what kind of air sealing you need in your house.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that's the most interesting about the home energy audit, when Columbia Gas or their contractor comes to your house, they have an infrared camera most of the time when they come, and that lets you, instead of seeing visible light, it lets you see how warm or cold things are. So when they point that at a window, and they've got that blower fan running, pulling cold air into your house, you can see where the cold air is coming in, clear as day. And then you know which windows are sealed well, which doors are sealed well. If you point it at a wall, you can see the studs. You can see places where the insulation has settled and you need insulation, or maybe you have no insulation in the walls. So they can tell these things when they come and do this home energy audit. And I'll tell the number right now. You can look it up online, but just I'll run through the number. So this is to call Columbia Gas for a $50 home energy audit. The number is 877-644-6674. And I think that's only weekdays. I tried calling. They weren't open.
Okay, you want to try call? Want to give us that number one more time?
Right, so this is Columbia Gas for a home energy audit, just $50. It's 877-644-6674.
Okay. Well,
now,
I know...
Not only will it... Yeah, go ahead.
I know that a lot of people are looking at their tax returns coming in right now, and it sounds like maybe a good investment for a tax return would be to insulate your house in terms of, actually getting some return on your investment. I mean, savings accounts and bonds and things are paying next to nothing in terms of interest. But if you invest in insulation, you literally get a return every time you need to turn on the heat or turn on the air conditioning. It makes that process that cheaper for you. And it definitely is one of the keys to a green future, is to having houses and buildings that are well insulated and don't need much energy. And it might be Columbia Gas doing this, but if you insulate your house, that's actually a good first step towards getting geothermal heating, which of course doesn't use any gas and doesn't put any carbon into the air. So it's a win-win for you to get insulation. So how expensive was it for you? How big of a sacrifice was it for your household budget to get the insulation when you did?
That's an excellent question. So it's a little bit different because I did little things over time.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. The thing, some people, like, I happen to like working on the house. I don't mind climbing up in the attic and doing any kinds of work that needs to be done there. If you're that sort of person, then you're doing the labor yourself and you're paying for insulation. And so a few $100 per project is a pretty good guess. I wish I had a number for you to say that it pays 5% a year or 10% a year in the money you put in. But again, this home energy audit, there's something about that makes it an extra sweet deal. Columbia Gas actually gives big rebates. So, again, if you're a Columbia Gas customer,
mm-hmm.
by all means call them, because they will hook you up with real contractors who know exactly what they're doing, do the work well, and they'll give big discounts. And I don't know exactly what the discounts are, right? But my understanding of it is that the savings on that are so good that, if it's worked for me, and and it did, the insulation paid off over 5 or 6 years, it's going to pay off for other people over 2 or 3 years. And after that,
mm-hmm.
the house will be more comfortable, and they're making money every year.
All right. Well, thanks for the advice, Craig. That's very
mm-hmm.
good. And once again, it's pointing out that moving to a green future actually is going to make you more comfortable, because you're a well-insulated house. You get through cold snaps like the one we just had with more comfort, and it will improve your life. You're not sacrificing by having a well-insulated house. You're doing actually better. So, all right. Well, thanks very much, Craig, for the call and the advice. And yeah, I'd suggest people follow Craig's advice and get out there and get some insulation on your house. So, all right. Well, have a great day, Craig, and thanks very much for the call.
My pleasure.
Okay. We have another caller on the line. Cindy is on the line. Hello, Cindy.
Hi, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to For a Green Future.
Yes, I'm so disappointed Marky couldn't make it to talk about the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, so I just thought I'd make a quick plug for it, if you don't mind.
Sure, go right ahead.
It's really fantastic. I've been helping out Toledoans for safe water for the last year or so, and the enthusiasm for the Lake Erie Bill of Rights in the city of Toledo is fantastic. Mm-hmm. So in spite of the bad press and the pushback from big agriculture, big oil, the trade unions here in Toledo that say, oh, no, you don't want this, and Toledoans don't want clean water. Most people are actually for clean water and really like the idea of the rights of nature law that helps us, the citizens, be the stewards of the lake that we've always wanted to be. We've always wanted to protect it because it's our livelihood, it's our drinking water, for goodness sakes. And, who wants to go to the beach and get covered in green slime? That's just not fun. So,
no,
it's
not
the
healthy.
enthusiasm that I've come across yesterday. I was at a Medicare for All town hall. People are very interested in the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, and once they hear about it, they're always 100% for it because they understand the connection between health and clean water, and that we need to clean it now because it's not getting any cleaner under our current system of governance, which pretty much just regulates what day of the week they can dump things into the watershed that causes the blue-green algae bloom. So they know that we, the people, have to take charge of it. So it's almost more of a democracy problem than it is an environmental problem, though it's really both.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that as I said, I'm a Green, although on this program I don't talk for the Green Party. I'm only talking for myself. same with all my guests. But I think that definitely I see a correlation between the strength of democracy in places and the condition of their environment. In other words, places where democracy is the strongest, where people have the most direct control of their own government, those places tend to have the healthiest ecologies and ecosystems, whereas places where the environment is it's top down, there's a dictatorship, or there's people are locked out of the legislative process by corporations or whatever, those places have the degraded environments, the less healthy environments. So what you're saying is that this Lake Erie Bill of Rights actually is a pro-democracy piece of legislation.
Yeah, it really is when it comes down to it. It lets us really take our government into our hands. I mean, we're all raised when we're children to say we live in a democracy and we can enact laws and, something is terrible happening. Let's pass a law to stop this. Or something is really wrong, like segregating people because of race or religion. Let's pass laws to prevent that from happening because we know that's not right. That's immoral. God wouldn't want us to do that. But we see nowadays, I think in 2019, that there's so many laws that just don't exist that we kind of assume they did, or we assume they worked a certain way, but when we get them into practice, they don't work for us at all. They seem to just work for the polluters, for the big corporations, most of them multinationals, where they can dump their pollution into our lake, and then they take their profits elsewhere to another country and keep it in their Swiss bank account or their Cayman Island account. We don't even see the financial profits from polluting our own watershed. We don't get anything from it except dirty water and sick children and not a very pretty lake and a lot of lack of tourism. I don't think people realize how much tourism Lake Erie actually brings into the city of Toledo and the area. And
it's billions of dollars.
Nobody wants to fish in blue-green algae.
Right.
Face it, it's just horrible. It's killing the fish. It's not doing anybody any good there. So.
I think I'm going from memory here, but I think when the lake is healthy, when it's a good year and people can fish and boat all year round, it's something like $7 billion in terms of
amazing
the fishery, the value of the fish taken out, and the tourism, and $7 billion a year that goes away in a year when there's a big blue-green algae bloom because, as you said, no one likes to boat or fish in that. So, all right.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah,
thank you very much, Cindy.
I just want to encourage everyone to vote February 26th or earlier. Early voting is going on this week as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the call. I have to go and do some other things now, including our letter from the future. So,
okay.
But I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, as I told Cindy, now is the time where we have to talk about our sponsors, and we actually enjoy talking about our sponsors because we like them so much. One of our main sponsors is the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. It protects natural spaces, maintains the quality of green spaces, provides engaging programming, and teaches people to love and respect nature, restoring wildlife habitats, and leading outdoor adventures. And true to their word, we've got some outdoor adventures that they have scheduled coming up. So once again, get out your pens and your calendars because we have both volunteer opportunities and we have just some opportunities for some fun things that are being done. I'll talk about the fun things first. So first thing on the list is March 7th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. They're going to be giving us the story of the swamp at Otsego Park. And for these events that you participate in, you pre-register, please, at wcparks.org. That's wcparks.org. So then on Friday, March 22nd, from 7 to 9 p.m., they're having an event called Wildflowers and Wild Side, Beer and Trivia, which sounds like a ton of fun. That's going to be at the W.W. Knight Preserve in Perrysburg, which is a really excellent venue. It's a really cool place to just hang out. And apparently we're going to get to hang out and drink beer and talk about wildflowers, which that sounds fun to me. And then, of course, coming up May 11th is the annual plant sale, which is held at the Park District headquarters on Mercer Road in Bowling Green. There's no pre-registration, but if you go online at wcparks.org/friends, you can pre-order some of the plants you're going to buy. And they have native plants there for sale, which is so important these days to preserve the native flora of this area, because there's so many invasive species. In fact, next week's show is about invasive species. The title is Invasion, and we're going to have a special guest talking to us about invasive species and how you can help. So one of the ways you can help is by volunteering with the Wood County Park System on April 16th. They're going to have a conservation volunteer day at Otsego Park. That's April 16th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And for volunteering at the Wood County Parks, there's a slightly different website. You go to wcparks.galaxydigital.com. That's wcparks.galaxydigital.com. You can go there, sign up to become a volunteer. They'll let you know when there's volunteer opportunities and get you all hooked up. And one of the cures for the frustrations of environmental things, so we see some of these problems, but one of the cures is to get out into nature. And if you can get out in nature and actually sort of get to work, roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, that's very satisfying, and it's great therapy. So another opportunity, March 23rd from 10 a.m. to noon, they're going to have volunteer woody plant removal at the Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. So actually taking out some of those invasive species so that the native plants have a chance to take a hold. And they also have a monthly Eco-Lit book club at the Wood County Park District. So again, go to wcparks.org for more information. And thank you very much to the Wood County Park District for sponsoring For a Green Future. Our other sponsor is DeMar Consulting, demarconsulting.com. DeMar Consulting does computer work. They consider them your own personal IT desk. And what they do is, at DeMar Consulting, they'll actually come to your house. So if you're having problems with your hard drive, if your computer's got viruses, if you're not sure what to do, give DeMar Consulting a call at 419-973-3000. That's 419-973-3000. And they will come right to your house. No need to unplug things, no need to carry stuff in. And they will help you out on a one-on-one basis. And they can help you install new software. They can train you on new software. They can basically answer all your computer needs in the comfort of your own home. So the website again is demarconsulting.com, and DeMar is spelled DEMARE, and then the word consulting.com. And the phone number is 419-973-3000. Give them a call and fix that problem that's been bugging you on your computer. Get rid of those pop-up windows that keep messing things up. And do it today. Why not? 419-973-3000. All right. Well, speaking of today, we are running through here. We've covered a lot of ground already. But it's time for the letter from the future. Yes, every Sunday morning right next to my bedside, there's this flash of photons, and a letter appears from the year 2299. My great-great-granddaughter, Marie I, is writing me letters from the future. It's terrific. All right, so here's this week's letter. Dear great-great-grandpa, greetings from the year 2299. Hard to believe it's already 2 weeks into February, isn't it? You might be wondering why we chose the Kola Peninsula to dispose of the world's nuclear wastes. Well, the first reason was we needed to find a place that was geologically stable. We don't want the wastes carried back up to the surface in any way. Second, there's already a hole started here. Back in the days of the old Soviet Union, the super deep borehole was created as an experiment. It's hard to believe, but using just the primitive technology of your time, they bored a hole more than 12,000 meters deep. That's more than 7.5 miles, as you used to measure it. Anyway, it was decided that rather than try to drill a new hole where we might run into unknown problems, we would reopen the old hole. We're also able to reuse a lot of the old infrastructure that was abandoned in your time. The old buildings were all still here, and again, instead of causing more environmental damage building new ones, we retrofitted the old ones. They needed a lot of retrofitting, though. Can you believe that the Soviet sewage treatment system was just a pipe dumping out into the bay? As a scientist, it still amazes me how the scientists of your time separated all the different parts of science and ecology, and they were blind to the others. So the geologists working on the super deep borehole ignored the biological damage that their camp caused. Our retrofitted buildings are all super insulated so that they don't damage the permafrost, and they use very little energy to heat. In fact, the dorm where I will be staying just opened up this past week. Up until now, I've been living in kind of a yurt on the tundra. It was comfortable, but it's great to be living in an actual building with showers. My roommate's name is Julie. Let's see, what else happened this week? My friend Michael and I volunteered to do the weekly biofueled snowcat run into Zapolyari. The train tracks to our site are only used for delivering personnel and waste containers. This is to minimize the chance that the tracks could be damaged and cause a derailment of the nuclear waste train. Regular supplies are shipped to Zapolyari by dirigible, and then we bring them in by snowcat. It's only 10 miles. So on the trip in, we had a great time. We saw a polar bear, and Michael was talking all about his supercritical water thermal oxidation processing of the nuclear waste. At the shipping depot, we met this really nice guy named Igor. He is a Sami, that is, the people who are native to this region. In your time, there were only about 2,000 Sami left. Their culture was dying out. Now there's about 10,000 Sami, and their culture is thriving. Anyway, he was telling me all about his family, and while we were all loading the snowcat, he taught us a Sami work song. It was really hard to sing in a language with so many syllables for every word, but it was a great fun. On the way back to the base, Michael didn't really seem to want to talk much. I don't know why, but we're having lunch again tomorrow. Hopefully his mood will improve, or I can cheer him up. Igor has promised to come and visit us sometime soon at the camp. That's all for now. Keep at it, Great-Grandpa. Things will get better. Love, Marie I. Okay, well, so much fun to hear from Marie, and so much fun to hear from you. I want to thank Craig and Cindy for calling in at 866-240-1065, and encourage all of you to call in future shows, because this is the best show in the Toledo area, but it gets better every time you call. And you can call, like Craig did, he called about insulation. You can call on any environmental topic. You don't have to follow what we're talking about on this show, on the particular day, because I love talking about the environment, all aspects of the environment. And I love talking with all of you. I have to say that this show is wonderful therapy for me because as an environmentalist, I see all these things that are happening, these policies that are being made that fly against good common ecological sense. And here on this show, I get to talk about them. I get to tell you about them and hopefully, teach people something about them. And hopefully you guys will be teaching me things too as this show progresses. I'm just very grateful for the listening and very grateful that you're all sticking around. And don't worry, sports is on the way. The cheap seats with Mick Gonzalez is going to be on in just a few moments. And so I'm just very happy that you were willing to take a little bit of time, just that 1 hour out of the week to, leave the sports behind. Just think about a little something else for a little while, because we really do need to start paying attention to the environment. We do really need to put things back in balance. And the people that are doing the Lake Erie Bill of Rights are suggesting the way to do that is through this charter amendment, which would allow people to take people to court. Maybe that is what it's going to take, but we've got to do something, and we need to do it now. So thanks for listening. I'll be back next week, and this is Joe DeMar signing off.
Black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them